Just talking during the break about how tight these races are.
That's right.
This is what's going on in West Virginia right now. Still too close to call. We can't make any call right now, but Patrick Morrisey, the state attorney general, seems to have the inside track. But it is still early, doesn't mean anything. But for Don Blankenship, who was lamenting the fact that maybe that infamous tweet from Donald Trump saying vote for the other two guys but not him, that really cut to the chase and might have stopped whatever momentum he had, or the momentum that he claims he had. Again, the Republican side in the Senate battle in Ohio to, also take out a very prominent Democrat, Sherrod Brown. Still early to tell, but Mike Renaissance seems to have, Jim Renaissance, I should say, seems to have the edge right now, but it's anyone's guess. Simply too early to call. To presidential historian Doug Wead on all of these developments. Doug, we always tend to go into this midterm election with all of these races. You know, we have these 4 we're looking at tonight, and then another 8 in a week, and then 8 after that, and on and on and on, setting the sort of the table for what ultimately will be the grand meal in November. But one that typically favors the party that is out of power. But it could be very different. In the Senate, we could have Republicans holding on there, not adding to their numbers, and in the House, just the opposite. I know it's way, way too early, and I know historically those are kind of the trends we have. Split government also is something we've seen more of than we've seen parties controlling all branches of government. But what's your read of things?
Yeah, the historical tradition is just overwhelming. Now, you can go all the way back to Lincoln. You can only find 2 presidents who midterm picked up both in the House and the Senate, and that was 1934 FDR and 2002 George W. Bush. Very unique circumstances. It was a year after 9/11. So the history is just overwhelming. But I will say this, that if it's true, and there is a blue tide, and this happens the way history normally happens, then there's a new axiom that goes into the lexicon of politics, and that would be, it ain't the economy, stupid, because this is the greatest economy. Arguably, this is the greatest economy ever, including Reagan and FDR and Eisenhower. And if you exchange oranges for oranges, this is incredible. There are state and city governments 2 years ago that were almost bankrupt that are now flush with cash. So if the Republicans
I love you
lose,
as a historian, but I wouldn't go quite there. I'm not expressing a political viewpoint, but we're not quite in that. You know, it's the best of all time. It could very well be, it might be on the way there, and we've certainly come off the mat. But I am curious what you make of Republicans still having a devil of a time in the House making that argument for the tax cuts, the economic improvements, for some of these things you alluded to. It should be a layup for some of them, and it might be. I know Mitch McConnell was telling me in Washington a couple of weeks back, he doesn't buy a lot of these numbers that we're seeing in these surveys, that we're seeing that more people than you know are liking the tax cut, liking the extra money, liking the better job security they're enjoying, the boost in pay that they're, the first of which we've seen in this year over prior years. What do you make of that, and that will translate into more Republican votes? That's what he was hoping, at least.
Well, it could be, but I've been haunted by the words of Benjamin Disraeli these last few weeks. He said, expect the expected. Now, it's true that he died before Donald Trump was born, but still, I think we've gotten a little spoiled by this 2016 upset. And historically, this blue tide, as they talk about it, is what will happen. If you expect the expected, then it's what's going to happen.
I don't minimize the fact that they'll lose seats. I just don't think they're going to lose the House. I just don't. I could be wrong.
I don't think that it's going to be a given that, I'm not saying that it's going to be historical that they're going to pick up seats or go anything, but I don't think it's going to be a loss the way people are talking about it. Yeah. There's no sure thing here.
You know why I find it suspicious right now, Kenny? Doug Wead, who's one of the finest minds I know in history, is quoting dead people. I mean, really.
Yeah, that's why he calls himself a historian.
Yeah.
He's really got nothing new. I think it's really interesting because you can make the case. You may not agree with his hyperbole, but you can make the case that the economy is in such great shape that if this were any other president, like imagine if President Obama ascended to the presidency at the bottom of the economic trajectory trajectory and heading into an upswing. And if in his first year, first 18 months, he had the kind of economic growth that this president is seeing, can you imagine how the press would be covering that?
So, Noelle, that would imply that then it's problems individually with the president that's holding him back.
Well, we've got something else obviously going on,
which
too.
isn't fair, but it is what it is.
You're right, but we have a burning desire, unlike any other midterms, of impeachment. I mean, they've got a motivation here. The Democrats have a big motivating factor here, and that's
but they get nervous to publicly state that, right?
Some of them do. Tom Steyer is holding town halls across the country, pouring money, a billionaire, pouring money, getting people to impeach. Republicans are now raising the issue. It benefits
it could boomerang
both sides.
Well, that's why that they put $240 million into these midterms, and that's why they've been raising so much money, outraising the DNC. And now we're going to reap hopefully the benefits of that, because we know it's going to be tight, and we know it's going to, because every day, all day, people are trying to get Trump out of here, and that's their main deal. Because if you've got a House or a Senate that is flipped to the D side, Trump's got to worry, especially with this Mueller investigation.
It's really interesting because I'm wondering very quickly, is this a litmus test the way Supreme Court judges are during presidential races?
Oh, yeah.
Is there something about the term impeachment? Is that the one thing that's going to agitate and impassion voters on both sides?
Yeah.
We don't know. Doug Wead, I want to thank you very, very much, my friend. Always good seeing you.
Neil.
All right, to read on that, we don't know. We've got a couple of battles that are still out right now, particularly what's going on in West Virginia and